Eh? So be prepared. But for now, you have been Twaweza's executive director for 10 years, working towards building democracy so that we can amplify the lives and the voices of the people in East Africa. But the context has been shifting, not only in Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda, but all over the world. Looking back in those 10 years, what would you say have been the gains and setbacks in democracy building? Karibu.
Asante. Good morning. Those questions are tough, Barwani. It's my own fault, as you said, right? When you look around, it's very hard to deny that there's been a significant democratic backsliding or recession, deterioration when you look around the world. All sorts of surveys and indicators are showing that a picture. Last year, I think, more people are living under authoritarian autocracies than are living under democracies. Trust of citizens in their governments and in many other institutions, including media and society, is waning. So the picture can look really, really very grim. I think part of the challenge has been we had a forward momentum after the fall of the Berlin Wall and you know, an expansion of citizen participation in the choice of government. That forward momentum has slowed down. Some have said it's even stopped. In some countries, it has reversed. I think one of the big challenges, and maybe it also for us to think about in our countries, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, has been us as citizens, I think, just let the train go. We took it for granted that this forward momentum of expanding freedoms was the natural order of things, that all we had to do was sit back or ride the train. And there were very, very, very few of us, and I'm glad to say some are in this very room, who actually stood up and made sure to drive that train forward. But I have a feeling that that burden grew heavier and heavier. Zito will tell you. Mzee Uto will tell you. These are the people here who were driving that train of expanding freedoms, expanding accountability of governments to citizens. But it got heavier because we, ordinary citizens, took it for granted that that was going to be the order of things going forward. So I think the backsliding, the deterioration, is something that we have to recognize for what it is. That we have to stand up and defend actively in our daily lives, in our relationships with one another, begin there, but certainly in our relationship with our governments. We should not accept that we are mere subjects to obey, to accept, to be grateful for the little that we are given by our governments. We should step up and become citizens. And that's why so much of what we've been doing in Twaweza the last 10 years has put the citizen, the idea of a citizen, at the center of the work that we do. The voice, the engagement, the uragbishi, it is about wananchi wenyewe. Kuhakikisha kwamba wanajipatia wao wenyewe maendeleo, haki, maisha bora. It is our responsibility. So you said, so there's been backsliding, but I think there are seeds of an awakening to that reality. And I'm so proud of what Twaweza has been doing. Sometimes it can seem invisible. But that uragbishi at the village level, at the district level, is, for me, those are the really powerful seeds of generating citizens and citizenship. And when you look, and just final point, when you look now what's going on around the world, and especially in the United States, I think Americans are finding out that citizenship is not something you take for granted. So that on, is it Sunday, Saturday, they got out and declared their American citizenship. And they're finding out that they're going to have to keep doing this over and over and over and over again. So it is something that I'm proud of. It's planting that seed alongside with others about the absolutely vital work that we have to do as individual citizens.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aidan. That is very insightful, and it's like you prepared. And I gave him the questions this morning. Let me declare that. I didn't give him a year ago. Now, the next question, building on what you have just said, reflecting on your 10 years of leadership at Twaweza, and the work that you have been leading. Tell us one or two of your proudest moments and one or two of your lowest moments.
Okay.
You can decide whichever you want to start with.
I'll start with my lowest because my friend who helped see me through this particular lowest moment is here. The lowest moment was in August 2019, when on June 30th the government had changed the laws in Tanzania and all NGOs had to become NGOs. Now, Twaweza had been a company limited by guarantee, which made it hard for the government to just pull the plug and throw you on the, on the heap. But June 30th, 2019, the law was changed, and we had to register as an NGO. Let me tell you, I didn't think we would survive that process. I really didn't. He's nodding. We thought, wait, how are we going to survive this? They're using this transfer period of 6 weeks. I think we had 6 weeks to register, to basically futa zile wale wanaharakati ambao wanawasumbua. Remember that? So, with Richard, where are you, Richard? Modest. We tried to register another company limited by guarantee, but it got to the last minute and so Twaweza and stopped it. And then sitting next to Richard is Ben. At the same time, Ben Shabakaki, wave Bwana. At the same time, Ben and I were scheming, how do we make sure that this passes? That Twaweza with its new constitution and setup passes and doesn't get footward and suddenly you don't exist. I was terrified for those 6 weeks. I really was worried that come August 20, whatever the date was, we would no longer exist. But Ben went everywhere. And finally, I think you were in Mbeya, weren't you? Following the registrar, he was in Mbeya, and one morning he woke up and says, Aidan, we have it. I said, we have what? We have the registration. Twaweza. I said, okay, at least Twaweza now can continue, at least under trying different circumstances, but hatuja futwa. That was a low moment, but Ben, Richard, we schemed, and we were able to make sure that Twaweza survived. My high moment, I've had so many, but there's one that continues to live each and every day, and I'm going to be quite mundane about it. Every time you guys send money, that thing that says levy, 0, that is my perpetual high moment. That showed the power of the Sauti za Wananchi. The power of the amazing Twaweza team that you should see here. Can I please stand them up? Anastasia, Risha, Barwani, because in this very space downstairs, August 22nd, 2022, we were visited by... Well, you guys don't know. We were launching a Sauti za Wananchi survey on Tozo. And FFU came. And these 3 people, and Entesh, was Entesh there? Had to go downstairs and stand down the FFU. I'm serious. Huh? But that's the drama. But that drama for us in Twaweza, which we tried to keep well hidden, led to 6 weeks later, the Tozo being removed. And now you can do transactions with zero levy. We were asked by our board a couple of years ago, no, 2 years ago, yeah, when you're doing your strategy, think about the people-level outcomes of your activities. What does this matter to ordinary citizens? For me, that is a very great example of the impact of Twaweza's work, working with citizens and the media to turn around a government policy that now and for many, many years to come, hopefully, really improves the lives of ordinary Tanzania.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I am going to add a little bit to that story of that experience on that particular day when we were here launching the Sauti za Wananchi on mobile money transaction levies. And this connects to our incoming executive director, Anna, in the following way. So Aidan was to present, I was moderating. And then one of our colleagues, Jane, who is seated there, if you can wave. Jane walked all the way from there, came here to the high table, and just told me that there are police who want to talk to one of the organizers. And then I thought, I reacted in a very calm manner, like stepping down and walking out with Jane and getting out. Then I met the police. Risha came, joined, and Richard Modest and others, and we were talking to the police. And then I checked on my phone. I saw Zito's message saying that Anna amesema, Anna Bwana that is, amesema, umetoka hapa, kidogo kama inaonekana vitu haviko sawa. Is everything okay there? Before I could respond to his message, I think alipoona nimechelewa kujibu, he decided to walk out. Akaja akatujoin, akaendelea negotiate na wale police. And I remember one moment when he told me and Risha, subirini. Akaanza kuambia wale police, mnaona hiyo? Picha ya Rais Samia iko pale chini reception. Nyinyi, anawaambia wale police, mnaoperate kama bado mko zama zile. Sasa hivi ni zama hizi. Mtakuwa mmeharibu kabisa mkiendelea kuoperate kama mko zama zile. So thank you for that. And the connection to Anna is your situational awareness. Your situational awareness, we appreciate that. And welcome to Twaweza. Utatuangalia vizuri.
We need your situational awareness.
That was very, very helpful. Now, the other thing I wanted to say before we go to the final question is asking Aidan about his lowest and the proudest moment, and then he didn't talk about himself, he talked about Twaweza. Hivi ingekuwa wengine, tungeongelea nini? Remembering what he has been through. Passport, yes. And he didn't talk about it. So we appreciate that. Thank you very much. Always putting the organization, the citizens first, and rather than putting yourself forward. And adding to the story of putting the organization and the people first and not himself, at one point during hiyo issue ya passport, he had an audience with the then minister wa mambo ya ndani, Kangi Lugola. And Aidan met with the minister and they talked about kulikuwa na case ya unyanyasaji, wanawake wanavamiwa, wanapigwa, wanabakwa, Kigoma ilikuwa inaitwa Teleza. So he met with the minister ambaye ndo ameshikilia passport yake, anahoji uraia wake. But he never brought that issue kwenye hiyo conversation, and instead he just focused on the women in Kigoma who needed support from every corner, every angle in Tanzania. So thank you once again. Now, to your last question before we go to our next speakers. What would you say have been surprises? You know, as Steve Jobs once said, in hindsight, all dots connect. But in the moment, maybe there were moments where you felt, sikutarajia, this could have happened in the context, in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and all of those. It could be positive, it could be negative. What are some of the surprises when you are looking back in hindsight, and you really feel this is something that we never anticipated, but it happened, and we responded so that we remain cognizant of the fact that there could be surprises moving forward.
Thank you. Let's talk a bit about leadership and country leadership. I think we should never underestimate I'll put it this way, the lust for power that is around us. We should never underestimate. People will do anything to grab and to hold on to power. And that, for me, I think was a surprise, partly because maybe I'm just naive. Maybe I'm just naive in my default position of thinking good of people. But I was surprised by the incredible lust for power. And you know, we had an election in 2015, and we were promised many things, and then the lust for power took over. You know, and the extent to which it was manifested, and the extent to which it hurt so many people, I think was for me a surprise. And it was a wake-up as to the importance of both the individual courage, which I was so happy to witness from so many, some in this room, some not in this room, some, let me name this young man, Abdul Nondo, who continues to display true citizenship, you know. That was the other, I suppose, the other surprise, that there will be individuals who, in the face of tremendous odds and threats, will still stand up and fight for and say the truth. So that for me was a negative surprise and a positive surprise. I'll end with the other positive surprise. I didn't know how much fun it would be to work in civil society. Honestly. You know, for various reasons. I think number one, I used to be a banker, you see. Nobody wakes up to go to a bank filled with passion. Well, at least I didn't. And I don't. But I woke up every day filled with passion for the work of civil society because it's so meaningful.
Passport.
It's just a lot of fun. And so part of the fun is the people you interact with, the networks you build, the good trouble that you make together. You know, that's good stuff, you know. But I think the most important surprise was how much I have grown with this family of civil society, fellow travelers. I have really, I've changed, transformed from when I was, 10 years ago to now. And it has been, as I said to many, many people, and I'll say it again, the most meaningful professional engagement I've had in my life. And so that was a fantastic surprise and lots of fun.
Thank you very much. Shukran sana.
Asante sana.
Shukran sana. Now tunaweza kukaribisha sasa ukae kidogo, halafu tutakukaribisha at the end tuweze kuzungumza na wewe. So now we are going to give you the task ya kusikiliza, halafu baadaye utakuja kutupatia summary. Recognizing more and more people arriving in the room, I was getting nervous because we have questions prepared for them, and then I wasn't seeing them as part of the audience, and they are here. Marks and Justice, kwa kuja baadaye, sio kwa kuja kwa kuchelewa, kwa kuja baadaye. Mtapata maswali magumu kidogo. Karibuni sana. Now, it won't be a farewell and a transition kama hata symbolically hatutaifanya iwe hivyo. So now, nimkaribishe our incoming Executive Director, Miss Anna Bwana. Karibu. But kwenye hii panel, nataka nimkaribishe na dada mwingine, not because Anna hawezi kusimama peke yake, lakini ni another fellow troublemaker, kama Aidan alivyosema kwamba tuna troublemakers humu ndani. another fellow troublemaker ambaye amekuwa a senior staff wa Twaweza for so many years, and she has transitioned to some other roles atatuambia, na now that she has transitioned elsewhere, tunaweza na yeye kumuuliza swali moja zuri sana. Risha, karibu. In the same spirit of democracy, should we keep on standing or do you want to sit? Okay. Okay. So, sasa Anna, karibu. You can take the mic. Violet told us about this gloomy picture, and Aidan built on that, the grim image of democracy, the backsliding of democratic principles, and all of that. But it's not all just grim and gloomy and doom. There could be seeds of hope. As you reflect and as you are transitioning into your position, what are some of these seeds of hope that we really need to grab and maximize on and work on them as we move forward so that we remain focused and energetic and excited about this work? Karibu.
Thank you, Barwan. And just to add on to Aidan's first point, that these questions were sent to us, not just this morning, but half an hour before we were to arrive here. And so I've been spending the past half hour writing notes, which I've now forgotten, on the table. I'll wing it. So, I mean, I think it's very right that it's been a difficult time for civil society, for media, for change agents in the region. But there are some areas where I see reason to keep hoping. And I was telling Aidan earlier that I'm going to try not to sound that I'm in favor of revolution. But some of the things that have given me hope is, if you look at the wider region, we've seen more democratic transitions on the continent than since, I think, 2010. So we had elections in Ghana, in Botswana, in Mauritius, in Senegal, where we saw the opposition step in and take up power. And I don't think that we should underestimate what that means. And I think that, for me, these are signs not just of resilience, but of resilience translating into resistance, and that resistance leading to change and progress. And that gives me a lot of hope. And I think that's a sign of political resilience that we've built up on the continent. Economically as well, I mean, we often feel that life is getting harder, and for many people it is. But for example, the East Africa region is projected to lead GDP growth in sub-Saharan Africa. And so I think that's also a sign that there is a level of economic resilience that we have been building up. Now, what this means for especially young people, for women, for those who are more vulnerable, I think that's still debatable. But for me, understanding that there are pockets of resilience and there are systems that have been maturing, that's a sign of hope. A lot of the work that I do right now is with young people, and it's understanding, what do young people think, how do they feel, how are they responding to changes in the context. And I think we often speak of apathy, but what I've also learned is that the flip side of apathy is resistance, right? And an understanding and acknowledgement that it's not that we don't want to engage, it's not that we're not interested, but the system is not working for us. And so we're opting out of the system. And I think that's a good sign, because I think it's only when we recognize that the system is not working for us will we actually get pushed to start thinking about, well, how do we change the system? Not just how do we engage with the system, but actually how do we make a system that is working for us? And I think as part of that, you know, what always strikes me is just the amount of humor, creativity that we're constantly bringing to the fore. You know, no matter how hard things get there, we have these pockets that keep inspiring, that keep, I think, giving us reason. And I think the real challenge for Twaweza and for civil society will now be one, how to understand and leverage these cycles of resistance and resilience, but also how to really harness that creativity, that humor, that passion and energy that especially young people still really have. And how do we translate that into meaningful change that really will change systems and not just look at how to engage or participate?
Thank you very much. And the way, thank you. And the way you have concluded actually is a very nice segue to the question I want to pose to Risha. And then after Risha, I will invite now anyone who would like to engage with what Aidan, Anna, and Risha will have said. Now, the systems are not working for us. And as Aidan said, and I want to quote because I wrote it down, ordinary citizens took it for granted. Citizens had to play our role as expected. And as you transitioned out of Twaweza, you have joined the Justice Systems, an organization that works to transform systems of government and making them work for the people, work for what people care for. Looking at the sorry, I'm going to call it the sorry state of citizen participation and the apathy. But for years, you were a staunch believer in people's agency. Now that you are telling us that we should focus on working on transforming these systems, don't you feel like you have abandoned the people? Karibu.
I don't think these things have to be seen totally in tension with each other. I don't feel that I've abandoned the citizens to go, cozy up to the government. But I think, building a little bit on what Anna said, if you look, for example, at Mozambique, right? A very, our neighbor, such a related kind of political context with the same ruling party. And yet you're seeing there now citizens saying, actually, we've had enough. What prompted that was an election, a democratic process. But the kind of core issue behind it is that people's lives have become difficult. So what we're seeing is that democracy is, we assumed that it would deliver things for us, the things we wanted, better lives, good services. And that isn't and wasn't an automatic process. And actually what you're seeing all over the world, I'll also reference the US as Aidan did. I read this report recently on state capacity in the US, and it's saying basically the problems they have there, everything delays, things take much longer than they're supposed to and that they expect them to, and then they're not getting the outcomes they expect from the projects and processes they're initiating, right? And that's a very similar issue to what we have, right? We're not getting the outcomes, even when we do good policies, we don't get the outcomes we expect, right? And we're always, kind of feeling like we're behind the times. So I think this question of state capability is really, really important. And inside the state, we think of the government as this kind of entity over here, but actually it's people. They come from all of us, right? There are family members, there are community. We're talking too much. What was I saying? Yes, thank you. So the government is made up of people as well, and we haven't, I think, invested enough into thinking, how do we really enable them to deliver? We're in a world in which crises are so complex. Climate change requires a kind of negotiation. So
No, now you have to hold the both for the online community.
No, I can do it. It feels a little much. Okay, so I think we really haven't invested enough in this idea of state capability, and we often think of it as a kind of technical skill. I'm going to go train government officials to do X. Or actually, it's about how they work together to focus on the outcomes. And back to democracy, I think democracy can be really focused on process. It is ultimately about processes, so we have to keep the outcomes very strongly in mind. The outcomes that citizens want, the government can deliver. So to me, it's a kind of negotiated space rather than a trade-off. And I wanted to just make the point around, to close, like accountability and transparency. So this is, these are really important concepts, but again, it's really about process. When we think about accountability, do we ask for what and to whom? And what tends to happen with, for example, when you see a lot of transparency but no response, no accountability, is that you get this kind of apathy, right? We're just putting things out there and we're not acting on them. Or if we do act on them, what we tend to do is increase what I call compliance reforms for government. So, okay, this money went missing, so we're going to add another check as to make sure the money goes to the right place.